My name is Will Jackson. This presentation is Docksal, local development with Docksal. So, as I said, my name is Will Jackson. I am from Canopy Studios. We are a distributed design support and development agency based out of San Francisco, California. We're fully distributed, so we are all throughout Canada, North America, so Canada, United States, and Mexico. So, I guess just diving right in, what is Docksal? So I thought the best way to do that would just be to give you guys a quick demonstration. I got a couple of demos here, but this one hopefully will show us kind of what this is. So currently, let's go one right back here. I want to remove, actually I don't need that, git clone. And basically I'm just going to clone this down into Docksal, Florida. Change that. I'll explain this while this runs. Florida. Okay. So what we're doing is we are cloning a repository, and once this is cloned, we are going to navigate into the, in this case, the Docksal Florida directory. I could have called it anything. And then just running this one command called fin init. This is going to be the last thing that runs, and that's what's actually running now. So what we're doing, it's grabbing some containers, it's creating some containers, it's setting up our environments. In this case, we're just waiting for the command line to become ready. This usually takes a moment here. And while we wait for this to complete, basically what Docksal, the benefit of Docksal is that you can keep everything in a repository, you can grab some code, you can run a command, you can build an environment. There really isn't much more than that. There's no talking to your senior devs on the team, there is no referring to documentation in most cases, although you should still have it there, obviously. So in this case now we're just getting to the database part of Drupal. So this is typically when you're grabbing from Pantheon or some remote host, it's a process. You grab a backup, you download it to your machine, you import it manually. So Docksal can extract all of that for you. It's where one command can install your entire environment. So in this case here, this is just kind of the demonstration project with Docksal. So it's just kind of a bare Drupal 8 site. So there's not a whole lot involved. It's just a basic D8 site kind of out of the box. It's going to set up things like settings.local.php, some base configurations. We'll see it here in just a moment when it completes. So here we go. It took a little bit longer than my previous demos. It took about 30 seconds. This one took 50. But now we have this demo. So docksalflorida.docksal. I can click this link and go to my local one. And that's a little bit slow this morning, but as you can see, there's our Drupal 8 site. So basic Drupal 8, it's kind of cool. Most of us have probably seen this, but I don't know if we've seen it set up that quick. So going back to the presentation now, I want to kind of talk about how we got here. So this it's been a long path since we've to get to where we're at. And most people, when they get started with bare metal tools. So MAMP, XAMP, LAMP even. Some of the pros of this setup, it's really easy to get configured. It's very well documented. Any system that you have, Windows, Mac, PC, or Linux, it works on all of them. Some of the cons here, though, there generally is a lot more onboarding time. You can't really sandbox, and what I mean by that is if you're working on a project, you have files and assets that are typically lingering around your system for a while. Databases, things from old projects, old backups. With bare metal setups, you typically have those files hanging around a lot longer. Also different software versions, so different versions of PHP. You might still have a Drupal 6 site that you're maintaining for whatever reason. You might have a Drupal 7 site, and you probably own cutting edge sites too, a Drupal 8. So trying to have one environment that runs all of those can become very tedious. And another thing is too, it's not really easily shareable. So you can document it, you can repeat the steps, you can script it, but repeating this environment, it doesn't always work at the same time, or I think all of us have probably heard that saying, it works on my local. So this is kind of problems of this old, I think early 2000s kind of era of web development. In some cases it's still around, production hosting, that sort of thing. But for local development, then we have virtual machines to go along. So we've got VirtualBox, namely Vagrant was the big thing here. We actually have a Vagrant file, a single file that we can commit to our repository that has the environment configuration all saved within that file, so that then we can do something like Vagrant up, and then it goes and grabs all the resources and the proper images that we need and builds the environment. Some of the cons of the setup, though, switching costs. So typically it's not, Vagrant and VirtualBox is not really well renowned for resource management. So if you have a bunch of sites installed and they're taking up those resources that run, you can spin them down, but you're still taking up the space that you allocate for that, even if you're not using it. And you also have to maintain an operating system. So there's some, where it is neat, it is cool, there's a lot of neat stuff you can do with it, and there are still some advantages to, say, a VirtualBox setup or virtual machine kind of setup. But you still have to maintain an operating system for it, and it can be tedious, but still better than bare metal. It's getting in the right direction. So then we come to containers. So containers are similar to virtual machines, and actually in this case on a Mac, Docksal is actually running a container. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But the nice thing about containers is that we can actually start really sandboxing with these. We can, and what I mean by that is that these apps, these containers are isolated from one another. So anything that we put into, let's say, the database or any of the files that we have, when we remove that container, those files typically go with it unless you specify to keep those around. So you can keep better management of your resources. Other things like a shared kernel, that's kind of goes toward it shares a kernel amongst all of the containers as opposed to like a virtual environment. Each virtual machine has its own operating system. So then you're going to have additional resources allocated towards those. So containers, they're just more efficient with sharing, so in this case the kernel, but just better saving with memory and space too, I find. So then we come to Docksal. So Docksal is, you think of it as a wrapper for Docker. So where Docker has a lot of cool stuff with containers, a lot of neat features that are there. There's still a lot of kind of overhead with it. Understanding port forwarding, knowing how that works, so you don't run into collision with services. There's just a lot of additional things that you have to kind of go through if you're working with vanilla Docker or vanilla containers that Docksal handles a lot for you. So deeper into Docksal, it's really easy to get set up. In most cases, it's just this single command, curl get.docksal.io, tac.sh, or python.sh, and then with Linux, it runs native. There is no virtual machine required. Just Docker, install Docker. With Mac and Windows, there is a single VM. It's very thin. So in this case, it does require Linux to run, so that they use a VM. That's the recommended way. There actually is Docker for Windows and Docker for Mac. You can use that too. That if you were to get into Docker and if you were to get into just vanilla Docker, you would probably run across that. You would probably see that as the recommended way to install Docker. Docker for Mac, Docker for Windows. Those are great solutions. They do work with Docksal, just not as good as the VM. So if you check out Docksal, keep that in mind. Make sure to look at the VM first and follow those instructions. And plus, if you're already using Vagrant, we have got a lot of feedback of conflicts with Vagrant on your local machine. We actually have identified a lot of these and wrote a pretty extensive blog post on how to get around this. So if you are using Vagrant or currently using Vagrant, looking into checking out something like Docksal, I'll definitely recommend our blog post. One of our senior devs, Sean Dietrich, great guy, brilliant, wrote a great post on all the steps needed to get both of these playing nicely side by side. And then Docksal, as mentioned, it is cross-platform. So Windows, Mac, PC, doesn't matter what you have, you can be using Docksal. So why would you, let's skip this slide here, you got it out of order. So why should you use Docksal? That's the first slide. I don't know why I was switched out there. Faster project onboarding. So as we saw initially, there was just a git clone. We went and grabbed our repo, we pulled it down, we ran one command, now our site's up. if you're working on a support project where you don't have a whole lot of budget associated with for the client or for the task, saving that time setting up your local environment really helps. Being able to pull in a developer that hasn't worked on this project in a while, or a new developer entirely, being able to put them in there and have them set up with their local environment in 5 minutes or less, that's huge. That's a huge time saver. You're not spending time on figuring out your local, building your local. I know in some cases, if you have a multi-site install with a Drupal 7 site, that might take a while to build. Having that scripted and having that to where you can run one command and build the whole site, that's a huge time saver. It's just better documentation because, you really don't, you can still need it, but it's not as important. You're not following it. It's not like a LAMP setup or a map setup where you're copying and pasting a bunch of setup commands over to get this set up. It is repeatable. So this same configuration, it's on my machine, it's on my coworker's Windows machine, it's on my other coworker's Linux machine. It's the same exact file, the same configuration shared across all of them. So I know it's going to work. If it's set up right and doesn't have errors, it should be just fine. And again, since it is Docker, it is better for resource management. So some cases where you wouldn't want to use Docksal. And this is really more of a when you wouldn't want to use Docker question, because the biggest thing is that if you have an operating system other than Linux, Windows, IIS, I guess BSD, that you wouldn't want to use Docksal there. Docksal is also not for production hosting. Not that you couldn't do it. You could. Wouldn't recommend it, but you could definitely do it. But I'm just going to say you should not do it. It's going to go on record saying that.
Why is that?
It's just there's a lot of. For example, there's a lot of the database. For example, you've got a lot of things hard coded in there, like your database name is default, and then like a root is your username and password. Now, you can change that, sure, but that's the default settings, and it's not intended for that. So you could miss that. There's also some other things too. Like if you're sharing keys. There's a lot of stuff that it's intended for. It's intended for local development. It's not intended for production development or production hosting. If you're looking into Docker-based production hosting, I would check out. There is a service called Lagoon. I think it's Lagoon. It's they put out by the folks at Amazy.io, and it's not specific to Docksal, but it's more Docker-based hosting. It's kind of Docker Compose model. You give them a Compose file and they'll host it for you. So thanks for the question. So anyway, going back to Docker or Docksal, I've got two setups here. So this is basically the architecture, the file system architecture. On the left, kind of a basic setup. On the right, a little bit more advanced. On the left, we've got get ignore file. That's just ignoring some of these like local files that we have listed over here on the right. The commands directory. So this is and this is going to be a .docksal folder that is in your project. So this will actually be in your project somewhere. It doesn't have to be the Docker of the project, just but somewhere in the repo. So if you follow the practice of making initializing your repo one directory back and making like a web or like a doc root directory, this could be one directory back in that. We've got a Docksal environment, so that's basically where our general configuration and settings are saved. Etsy folder, so this will be like extra configuration for various services. So in this case, in this basic example, I've got PHP, MySQL, basically the things that you would normally go put in like your my.conf or your php.ini. That's what you'd be placing here in this Etsy directory. On the left, it's a little bit more advanced. So there is a docksal.yaml. So you don't. The only thing that's actually required is the .docksal folder. So if there's a .docksal folder, there's a lot of default settings that come with Docksal that will get it started. But most of these that's kind of what you would generally want to start with, because it gives you a place to configure the site within your docksal.env. Some basic settings around MySQL and PHP. For the advanced setup, we've got local settings. We're going to look at some of these files too, but we got our local settings for any customizations and things that we have only for our environment. So anything for for the main Docksal.env. That would be more of a global configuration. Everybody would have that. Those changes would be like committed to the repo. And then in this case, I've got a few more examples. So Apache, Drush, there's some cool things you can do with Drush, as well as Apache too. We'll look more about that in a minute. So those are kind of the difference of two different setups here. We'll look more at these two. So as mentioned, Docksal.env is generally for global settings, global project settings. You can also define some images here, specific images like PHP versions, PHP 5 versus 7. Again, all these changes and revisions on this file should be committed to the repository. This is a global thing, so this is a project-wide file. So, and then also similar to like the Drupal settings.local.php, there's a docksal-local.env, and that can be saved for like if you wanted to put like HT authentication or basic authentication, like a password wall to your local site. If you wanted to make it publicly accessible, you could do that. And this is what one looks like. I don't know if you can read that very well, but this is a sample file. So we've got our default stack. So that would be like Pantheon, Acquia. You can set up different stacks for different environments that you have. If you have something like the Black Mesh or very specific hosting configurations, you can build your own stacks there. In most cases, the default will work just fine. In this case, we're specifying like the web server container, which is Apache 2.4, database image, command line image, which is going to have PHP 7 in this case. Dockroot by default, Docksal adds everything to a dockroot directory. But if you want to change that, you can change this line here and say dockroot is like the current directory. So if you're on Pantheon or something, you don't really have the ability to specify. Well, you do now, but if you don't set up like a web directory or something, you just basically have your repo initialized off of a certain different place than where it expects. You can specify where it's going right here. And some additional settings too, like down here is xdebug is disabled by default. And then the docksal.yaml file. If you're familiar with Docker Compose, it's very similar to that. It's written very similar to that. Basically, it takes all of these different containers. It's one file that takes all those containers and then wires them together. Basically configures them to work with one another. It can also be used to inject custom configuration to your containers. We'll see an example of that in just a moment here. And changes made here are typically meant to be committed to the repository. So those files would be shared on the project. And just like the docksal.env, you can also create, so it's a typo there, but a docksal-local.yaml as well. So if you wanted to do something like install Mailhog, which is a service to suck in all the email that's being sent out from your server, or install Solar, or to demonstrate or to kind of test things out before committing it back to the parent project. There's a lot of reasons why you would want to use the local YAML file as opposed to the global one. But once you have things tested, or for any type of permanent changes, permanent solutions to that project, Docksal.yaml. And this is what this looks like. So again, if you are familiar with Docker Compose, this is very similar to that. It's almost identical. So in this case, we've got our web container, which we specified. Most of this is default with the exception of this file proxy thing right here, which big long line. And essentially what this is doing, which is really cool, if you've ever used the stage file proxy module, where if you're trying to download files or prevent yourself from having to download a large file system from a website, this is a way that you don't have to do that. You don't have to even enable the module. You don't have to download or anything. It's just handling it via Apache. It's being handled via the YAML file, so there is no extra module that you have to do. There's nothing, you don't have to bootstrap Drupal in order to configure your file redirects, so to speak. So this kind of just handles it out of the box for you without adding a module. And that's like an example of some customizations you can do to your containers and your environments in this case. And then the rest is pretty standard. We've got database sets, command line. And down here, we've actually got some extra stuff too. So these are extra variables with our site. These are the Pantheon Terminus email tokens. We'll get to that. We had a more advanced demo where we're actually going to demonstrate what this does. But yeah, so this is where you would extend that out, support any customizations that you may have. And again, you could test this in like a Docksal local.yaml before you put it over to the main file. Then we have custom commands. This, I think, is the meat of Docksal. Essentially, they're just bash scripts. I mean, you know bash, and you know how to write shell scripts. I mean, you're already home. You already know how to write them. Essentially, they're just extra commands for Docksal. These they have. If you put this in, if you remember in that directory, there was a commands directory. It's basically just these shell scripts you basically put there. You name them, and then they're available to your Docksal project. Fin is that's how you run it. But yeah, you would see all the commands that you run there. I mean, and those could really do anything you want. Anything that you can do with bash, drush or terminus or whatever you have, you could totally script all of that. And then you also have the concept of global commands. A global command will be saved into your home directory, so it wouldn't necessarily be associated with a project, but it would be all projects. So all projects on your machine. So on my laptop, if I have a global command, I have it on whatever directory I go to. It's not project specific. But if I wanted a project specific command, for example, I need to go out to Blackmesh for this particular host using this drush alias, download a database, pull that down, install it. That's only useful for this one project. So that's something that would be a project command as opposed to, I want to create a new site from Pantheon, and I've got hundreds of sites in my Pantheon account, so which one do I want to pick from? So, that would be another example of a global command where you can, run the command, go out, pull Pantheon, and then create a project based on that global command, what current directory, whatever you're in. And here's an example of a custom command. It's just a bash script, nothing special. We can go over and talk about this, but essentially it's just showing you that it's a bash script. There's some terminus stuff happening here, in which I think now I want to show you. Okay, so I am going to cheat a little bit in this one, just because it is Pantheon. There's a little bit more stuff involved. We'll talk about the more involved things. The biggest one is just that there's a terminus token that we need to get. You put that in your local file. If I just clone the file down, I'm not going to have a local file, and it's a live demo, so it'll inevitably fail when I go try to grab the token from Pantheon. So cheating a little bit by just having my local file already set up. But we'll look at that in a minute and kind of go over that. So going into Pantheon Drupal 8. And judging by the last one taking 50 seconds, this one might take a little bit longer. But I'm in this directory, and I'm just going to do an ls real quick. So we can see this is just a Drupal site. And actually, if I go into my Docksal directory, we can see these files. It's kind of low. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm trying. So do that, and then make that a little low. Okay, so basically we've got commands directory, local files, environments, and then the Etsy directory. So all I want to do here is just type fin in it. And fin is how you use Docksal. So fin is like the command that is your command to initiate Docksal. There's a bunch of help. So think of it like drush for Docksal. I mean, that's the file that you run. In this case, this will take a little bit longer. We're still only using a few different containers, but in this case, this part's similar. Just kind of creating the initial project. And it's going to go run through a bunch of a few custom commands. And we'll walk through these commands in a few moments here so we can kind of see what's happening behind the scenes. Plus, this is all shared on GitHub too. So I'll also have a link if you guys want to check this out. Use this project, use it as a demo for your own Pantheon sites. By all means, we'll have that link shared at the end so you guys can get access to that if you want to check it out. And
well, while that's going, man.
Sure, yeah.
So I saw the completely Jason. So are you Are you running dependency, PHP dependency with Drupal root? Are you just doing your drip modules? What are you? How are you getting Drupal in?
Yeah. So there are a number of ways to do this. Actually, the way I would recommend to do this, in Canopy, we have a composer-based setup. I mean, basically you can install Drupal with Composer. It's a repo and set up and configured. So pretty much we just get it and compose up and install. This particular example, since it is Pantheon, I just went to the Pantheon, said create me a new Drupal 8 Pantheon site, downloaded it and configured it with Docksal. I mean, that's literally all I did in this case. So there's a lot of other stuff happening here too. What we're doing, Terminus is a big deal. So basically there's the Terminus plugin, which is basically, it's on Composer. We could install, I can install Terminus, it actually is installed on my laptop, but I don't want to. I want to install it with a container because we're containerizing everything. So I don't want to have to worry about what Composer version I got. I don't want to have to worry about I've got, a really old version of Terminus or something like that. I always want it to be the most recent version, supported version. So in this case, Terminus and Composer, all that's installed on the container layer, as opposed to on the local machine, which in this case it just happens to be. But yeah, so this is a way that you just kind of put everything in there. I don't know if that answers the question, but.
No, I get it.
Yeah. Cool. So, and it's about halfway complete here. Does anybody have any questions while we wait for this to?
So are you downloading Docker images with Drupal installed, or are you building Drupal inside of a Docker image?
So we'll look at the repo on GitHub in a minute, and we'll take a look at it. It's just the only thing that I'm pulling down on the repo is basically what Pantheon gives us for their like press flow version of Drupal. Then there's those extra folders. So that's going to get, now what it's downloading now in this case, it's just installing Terminus on the container. So it's it's installing the containers. Now I've already downloaded the containers prior to this because it would be a lot longer to go through and do that with my cell phone connection. But with this, yeah, I mean, you use the containers. There are a handful of them in this case. I mean, you have one for like Apache, you've got one for MySQL, you've got one for PHP, and all the various containers that you have are then wired together with that YAML file. So yes, I guess in a way, I mean, just like Docker, if you were to do a Docker pull and grab the image and pull it down, essentially what you're doing there. But these images, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of configured after you download them and install them and create them, it then sets it up. So it installs Terminus and Composer. So now we're already past the part where we've installed Terminus, we've installed Composer. We're actually now we've reached out to Pantheon via the machine token. It's responded. We've grabbed the database, imported the database. We were checking to see if there were any database updates that were needed to be ran. In this case, there were not. And then I just had it drop out a link, a ULI, to basically log into my site. So coming back here, again, as mentioned, this is a kind of a very clean base install of Drupal 8 on Pantheon, so there's not a whole lot here. It pretty much looks like the other site for the most part. But so you can see, go here, go back to my view. And this is, okay, so there's my Docksal demo. And that's pulled directly from my Pantheon project up on Pantheon. So now if we go into the site, so if I do, so now that the site is installed, you need to work on Drupal. So I mean, there's a lot of tools that come there. So like Drush, for example. So Fin, Drush, let's do a status so we can see it. So yeah, we've got Bootstrap successfully. We have Drupal console. And a few other Drupal tools too. So Xdebug comes turned on. So if you wanted to enable Xdebug, it's just go into that environment folder or environment file and then enable it. So this is going back to the project, so if we wanted to like enable X debug, you would just turn that, or you would uncomment that line, and then in this case just uncomment that line, save it, and then do a thin up, and it would rebuild the images with with X debug enabled. The same thing too, like if you wanted to enable any configuration, change out a container image like a PHP 5.6 to a PHP 7, it would just be changing a line and run thin up to get that updated config. And then as far as the Docksal commands, we ran thin init, and this is effectively the init script. It's running a few other things. It's actually running init site, and then we're clearing cache and then doing the ULI. So init site is the big one here, and it's just doing some prerequisite stuff too. Is Docksal running? Is MySQL running? That sort of stuff. But then init site, let's refresh. But init site, that's going to run Terminus install, so that's where it's installing Terminus, and then the refresh commands will refresh the database, pull in the database from Pantheon, and then all of those settings for Pantheon are configured directly on the Docksal.env. So the Pantheon site, that's the actual site name, Pantheon, and then the environment that you want to clone from. That file, that stage file proxy voodoo I was talking about earlier, that is what this line is here for. Basically, it's just specifying the remote URL to actually go grab the files from. And the way we're doing that is with our YAML file. We're including basically additional host configuration for a virtual host, which is then dropped into the Etsy directory under host.conf. And that's what, and this is just an example of some more advanced configurations that you can inject into Docksal. In this case, the web server container. And then drush. You can do things like include a drush alias. So if you're working on something that's not Terminus based or non-Pantheon site, Blackmash, or pretty much anything that you have a drush alias to connect to, you can include that drush alias in the drush directory, and then with your custom commands, you can refer back to that alias file, with drush. So that way you're not limited to just Pantheon. You can, anything that you have SSH access to, you can have one command to install your entire site. And for a project that has, you have support projects. I work on support, so for me, it's really important. And I'm going to imagine most of us do work on Drupal sites in some capacity, and multiple in that case too. So if that's the case, just using Docksal makes it to where that entire environment can be configured in one file. And then if I go from my home computer to my laptop, I can clone the repo, run one command, and be back in business. And not have to worry about how out of date is my machine, or how out of date is my environment on my laptop. I can just pick up and go, which is really, really useful. Not that I'll be the help let's see. I think
is the Apache based file management, is that something built into Docksal, or is that something that you did yourself?
We build ourselves. Yeah.
Is that publicly available somewhere? Because that's really cool.
Yes, I actually got that. So next slide actually. So that wait for this again. So we've got a Pantheon repo. Right here, so it's Pantheon Docksal Demo. That, if you want to go there, that is pretty much that entire Pantheon project. Now, granted, it's not Pantheon; it's on GitHub, so it wouldn't be intended for you to use it as a, as kind of like a base, but more as a guide, as an example. And the Docksal and Vagrant demo, I would highly recommend if you are using Vagrant and you are anticipating to check out Docksal, I would strongly encourage it. But definitely go check out a blog post on canopystudios.com. It's great tutorial, great resource for getting both of those to play nicely with each other. And then Docksal.io, there's just a whole lot of documentation there, and actually I want to kind of show you this right. Oh, I didn't. Let's go there. So this is one thing I really like about Docksal is their documentation is great. It's really good. Probably the more notable things though are just some of the additional configurations that you can add. So just to kind of show you a few of them. So like Apache Solar, VHAT, Blackfire, Ngrok. So Ngrok's actually built right into the Docksal. Like you don't have to install anything. So this is really cool.
What's an Ngrok?
We'll see. We'll show you. So FinShare. So FinShare is a way like you have a local environment that's local. You don't have. I didn't set up port forwarding on my router. I didn't do. I got it. But I want to be able to show my project manager this thing I'm working on, or I'm having trouble with a particular view, and I know but somebody else is really good with views, and they didn't come help me out. This is a way that I can do one command, FinShare, and now my URL is publicly accessible. I've got HTTP and HTTPS. So if I want to go here, I can actually go see that site via the Ngrok. That's what Ngrok. Via this URL. And I mean, I've used this in airports before. I don't have an airport. I don't have control to the routers or anything there. I mean, it works great. And I mean, this is something if you guys want to go try to hit that URL, you should be able to access this Docksal demo site. What's that?
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, like this is, and it's just like one command. And coming back here too. Yeah. So I think that's me that's looking out there, but. That's some hilarious. Yeah, see. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's very dense. Docksal is very dense as far as features. And I'm just going to close that. FinHelp. That's the big ones. FinShare is always a fun one. I always typically forget that one to demonstrate that. Aliases. So like Drush, you can also set aliases for Docksal. So you don't want to have to go to a particular directory, or if you want to script with Docksal even further, it's a great way to do that. I won't go through each single one of these, but I think another concept that's really good to understand too is that the SSH keys. So whenever I'm going out like via terminus, one of the things I was always running into with Docker is I need to have this public SSH key. I need to be able to go grab my repo. I need to be able to go reach out to Pantheon or to Blackmesh or whoever to get like a database, and I need to do that via SSH. I mean, I need to be able to do that and have that public key. One of the really cool things about Docksal is that whenever you install, whenever you create a new project, it takes the user that you started it with. So in this case, it's my W Jackson user on my computer. It takes the public SSH keys that I have on my machine and just shares them with that container. So I don't have to worry about like creating a key. I don't have to worry about sending that anywhere. It's just there. I mean, it's already in GitHub. It's already on Pantheon. I just run the one command and pull it down. So that's really cool. I mean, there's a lot I can talk about on this, but there's, I guess, does anybody have any questions, any specific questions with this? Have you used Docksal and you had a hard time with it? You use Docksal and you love it?
Does it work with more than just Drupal?
What's that?
Does it work with more than just Drupal?
Yes, so that's a great question. So it works with Drupal, it works with WordPress, pretty much anything that runs on Linux, Gentoo, Laravel. We've got some Laravel projects that run on it. I had a couple of Python projects running on it, and that was just more for fun. I don't really know why I wanted to do that, but anyway, I was trying to see if I could do it one day. But yeah, I mean, you can. It's open source. It's completely free. Docksal.io is the site. Check it out. So, yes, sir.
So, this whole Docksal thing is just mainly for local development, right? It's not like putting this on production.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you can. I mean, like you could. Wouldn't recommend it. It's intended for local development. I mean, there's just a lot of tools, configurations, and assumptions that are being made that do that. So it's going to be a security. I mean, it's going to be a huge security risk to do that. Not that couldn't be fixed, but I mean, it's.
And you mimic your production site.
Correct.
Through your Docksal file, I guess.
Correct. So another thing that you could do, so if you were wanting to get into more like advanced hosting, Lagoon is what I. It's going to bug me. I need to go actually look it up. Lagoon, I think it's definitely by the folks over at Amazy. That they they use, I want to say Docker Compose, so it'd be very similar to like your Docksal YAML file. Instead, it would be a little bit of a, little bit of middle, not quite a one-to-one, because you're going to have some additional files on your side, but, and there's also, Docksal does support things like Circle CI, right out of the box. So like that, now I don't have much prepared in the lines of that, but that is something else you could look into. As far as deployments, it is basically setting up deployment scripts. So if you have something like Pantheon, you could spin up, and then once you have a PR, it could spin up a new environment for review, and then once it passes the past tests that you may have, BHAT tests or anything like PHP unit tests, whatever, and that would then kick over to say like a Pantheon multi-dev or a dev. There's a lot you can do with it. Direct production hosting, I don't say it's quite there yet. In theory, it wouldn't stop you. You could go ahead, but just be careful. Yes, sir.
I was just curious, going from that question, if you or anybody tried using production Docker images, integrating your production Docker images into your Docksal environment so that your support folks are actually using
the same images,
production
yeah.
images for
You
support.
absolutely could. We haven't heard, I guess the direct answer to the question, no, I haven't tried it. I've tried it, I haven't done it or long term, or I guess done it on production, I guess, so to speak. But you could do it. You absolutely could do it. These are just images. So anything you find on Docker Hub, you could put it up there. And it's a YAML. It's pretty much just a Docker Compose YAML. So anything else beyond that that you would typically do like in Docker Compose, you could also do there too. So.
Do you have any comments about Vagrant, Docksal, and Lando? Right.
Yeah. So Lando. I haven't worked much with Lando, so I guess full disclosure there. But some of the feedback some of the early feedback that I heard with it was that it didn't play very well with multi-dev or multi-site installs. We just with support we had a few support, so I'm still mostly Drupal 7, and with that we saw a fair amount of multi-site clients, and with those it's more of a matter of standardization. So I know Docksal will work on anything that I throw at Drupal. So Drupal 7, Drupal 8, Drupal 6, or Drupal 4.
So you don't feel the need that it's
right.
lacking somewhere.
Right. So it just does everything you need. And on top of that too, and this is kind of a bias thing, I believe, but in my mind, this is kind of like what I always imagined it being. And then once it worked and did, kind of was the thing, the one tool I was seeking for years, and then it's here, and so, I didn't really look at much else. But no, Lando's another good one too. There's also, is it Druid?
Druid turned into this. No, you're thinking of the other one, sorry.
Right. There's two of them that are very closely named. Yeah, Druid used to be this, but some of them came here. But no, there's another one.
DDev, I think is what it is, right?
Well, that's another one though. There are a few of them. I want to say Lando's the
What was it first?
Calabox.
The Calabox. It was originally
Calabox.
Lando was really Calabox too, but Calabox burned so many people they just renamed it. I think they built it and realised it was supposed to do all this, and it never quite lived up to the hype. So they have to throw the Calabox name away.
Okay, Calabox I tried. I hated it in 10 minutes and never touched it again.
it's cool. There were some cool things about Calabox. Like Solar. As far as being able to quickly, I got a Pantheon site, I need to test a Solar thing.
And that's
I don't know
pain in the butt because they're still running Solar 3.5.
Yeah.
And you've got to run that. You can't run that on Java 9.
Right.
You can only partially run it on Java 8.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you guys using Lando?
No. I just wondered. Derek talks a lot about Lando. I think that was
I've heard about it. I heard it works pretty well, and very well from some of the people that say it.
Some theory saying that Calabox burnt you the first time around, and a bit more. Let's let that progress a bit, and then we'll go and play with it.
Yeah, and another thing too, like the folks from the way I heard it was just like there were some kind of differences in where they wanted the project to go. So they kind of spun out into two separate projects. Calabox.
Choices are good, though, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and also this is the first time doing this presentation, so I'm trying to feel the audience, feel the progression and timeline and everything too. So, any feedback that you guys have, would love to hear it. Good, bad. I mean, I want to make it to where everybody enjoys it. So that's the ultimate goal. But I definitely thank you all for staying here for the last session track of the day. Thank the Drupalcamp Florida people. I thank all you guys too. So I guess any more questions? Ready for lunch, huh? All right.
Ready to go in the